Good evening, Councilor Haas. The hour of 6 p.m. having arrived, I call to order this special meeting of the Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee. I really wish that it was easier to say that. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are in the wall pockets as you just entered the room. The public will be recognized to ask questions, make comments on the agenda item under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. We will not recognize any individual a second time until everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room. Identify yourself by name and address prior to speaking. Minute taker is participating remotely. Committee members, remember to turn on your microphone when speaking. If the minute taker is unable to hear, they will ask that you speak louder or turn your microphone on. Call to order this meeting of the Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee. I note that our whole committee is here. We have a quorum, obviously, and we move forward. And our first item on the agenda this evening, we have a communication from Carl Jacobs. Can you come forward and address you, identify it, tell us about it? Former Councilor Jacobs, good evening.
Yes, do I have to push a button here or am I all set? I'm good, all right. Well, you do have the communication, as I indicated in the communication. We actually submitted a proposal last year for a peace poll, and then I think this committee and from what I understand, some of the city staff were interested in perhaps pursuing the notion of the fountain on Central Square becoming some sort of a peace monument. And we now understand that that is not going to happen, that the fountain is going to go in some other direction. And so we figure we're still interested in donating a peace pole to be installed on Central Square. And so that's the purpose of our being here tonight. But our purpose really hasn't changed all along. Do you want me to comment on things or what?
That's a good start.
Yeah.
You have just kind of thrown out a question that I'll throw to the city manager. I was not aware that the function or design or anything of the fountain had changed. It was my hope that the fountain would be a fountain of peace, basically. That there really is nothing changed in that. Maybe the shape has changed, or maybe not. We haven't decided. But city manager?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to let Andy talk a little bit more about this because he actually is the one that worked with the group. But we did go through a process for a request for proposals for a fountain with some sort of peace message, a peace fountain. And I do believe we actually got one request, one proposal out of that, and the group decided not to go in that direction. And
What group was that?
Was the group that was meeting with Andy and Carl and
The group that signed the
Okay.
Yeah.
so and actually several of us are here tonight and are happy to speak to our ongoing intentions.
Okay, got it, thank you. It was my observation that at first the group wanted a peace pole, and then the suggestion came forth, make the fountain a fountain of peace. I don't think the city said anything further. I don't know that there was any real design work done on the fountain. Director?
That's correct. So when we left you at the last meeting and took the direction for the fountain, we went out, we created an RFQ, request for qualifications. We put it out to bid, and we received one back. We reviewed. It really wasn't what the group was looking for. And when I say the group, I'm talking about those who originally petitioned the committee, and we said they wanted to go back towards the pole, or the peace pole idea. And so with the going back in the peace pole direction, it was best for them to come back to you to say, you know, we looked at the peace fountain idea, it didn't work out. We really want this peace monument, peace pole in Central Square. And so we directed them back to the committee.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Okay, but there was nothing said by city staff that the fountain would be inappropriate for the use. I just
No.
want to
No.
try to set the boundaries of where we are. Okay. So, Carl, do you want to speak further, or you got other people that want to speak, or?
Well, I'll just say that I've learned something tonight that I didn't know, because I got the clear impression that, you know, the idea of the fountain becoming a peace monument was off the table.
Oh.
But,
Glad we're having this conversation.
yeah, I agree. One of the things that was involved, the proposal we got was for a beautiful piece of sculpture, which in the eyes of the artist and probably in other people's eyes represented peace. I think the concern that several of us had, particularly in connection with the Rotary clubs, which are supporting this effort, and Rotary International has a peace pole program that they install peace poles all over the world, and we felt that part of our effort would be strengthened by an association with an effort toward peace poles all around the world. So this beautiful sculpture didn't really make that connection to peace poles around the world. And in fact, I think you'd have to think, it might be provocative of beautiful thoughts, but I'm not sure you'd immediately say peace when you look at the design. And what the peace poles, it's labeled, it says peace in many languages. In this case, what we're talking about, and I think what they generally are, it would be the languages that are commonly associated with Keene, or have been. So we talked with some groups, we've talked about Abenaki and Braille and, you know, obviously English, but, you know, that's one of the things we have to do. But in other words, it says the word peace, or may peace prevail. And so that's part of what happened, that the artistic expression, I guess we were looking for a little more literal statement about peace.
I'll save one I'm thinking, but
I- some-
you want to recognize some more people to speak, or? Yeah, Jacob.
Yeah, if I could, I have a question, and I'm just, you know, I'm not, believe it or not, an architect, certainly not a sculptor. But I guess that I had envisioned this as less of a kind of sculpture combined with a fountain and more of like, would the group be open to, and I'm not saying this is the direction that we should or shouldn't go, would the group be open to, you know, an inscription around the fountain with peace in different languages that would, you know, not be a major, I don't imagine that would be a major cost for the group, and might better preserve the original intent of the peace pole instead of an entirely different sculpture.
It is a group, so and I'm one voice.
Yes.
But I think, and I probably should get a couple of the others to come up and speak too, because I think they're probably sitting there a little bit surprised as I was by this. But anyway, yeah, I think that was one of the possibilities we were thinking about. I think, yeah, the word peace seems to be kind of essential to the effort, but also something in the nature of an obelisk would associate the monument, the fountain or whatever, with these other statements of peace around the globe, which that seemed to be something that was important, particularly to the Rotary clubs who are supporting this effort. I don't know if you want to hear from some of the other
Yes.
folks.
Again, I'll reserve my thoughts, but I'm feeling good. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Good evening. Your name and address and so forth.
Yeah, good evening. Phil Wysick. I live at 15 Base Hill Road in Keene, New Hampshire. I'm the past president of the Keene Elm City Rotary Club that has been part of this project from the get-go. And I apologize that we were sort of confused a little bit about, because we thought somebody had decided that the delay of the project at Central Square would mean a delay of the renovation of the fountain and other things. So we thought we were back to square one with just asking the council to make a place in the square somewhere for a standard granite obelisk. So we can go back and think about it some more if it's still a possibility to use the fountain as a memorial to peace. But we thought that somebody had nixed that idea somewhere along the way, and so we thought we were back to square one. That's the confusion, I think, from my point of view.
Thank you. Thank you. Someone else? Other Rotary. Hello.
Good evening. I'm Cameron Tees from 21 Grant Street, Keene. I'm the past president of the Keene Rotary Club and on the committee that's been meeting since the end of 2023 on this subject. And I agree with what Phil just said. We were thinking that it had been nixed. I saw on the front page of the Sentinel the picture of a fountain like we had in the early part of the 1900s. And it seemed like that decision had been made to separate the peace fountain or the peace monument or pole. We're still open to a monument. It's just a matter, we didn't, as Andy said, come up with a design with the one submission we had. But the bottom line is we are really committed to the symbol of peace that we feel is universal, would be a gathering place and show the people of Keene are united around peace, and that's a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. I think the only thing that has been decided is that the fountain will be in the middle of the square and not on the side. What it is for people with more artistic ability than I, and probably than this committee, but I don't know, maybe my vice chair is very artistic. No. Anyone else want to address the issue? Yes, Andy.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think I can start to put some of the pieces together on some of the confusion part, where at the last meeting in February, there was some discussion related to the fountain and the location and that sort of thing. And the article came out in the paper related to, there was a design that was kind of put forward from Stantec, had the, like the more traditional fountain that you saw back in the early 1900s. And so with that, after that meeting, I was on vacation, I came back, I met with this particular group. We talked about that. We decided to move on from what we had gone out to bid for and go back to the monument piece, thinking that Stantec had moved forward with the downtown project, had moved forward with a different fountain design. So I think that was the disconnect here related to that. So I just wanted to clarify that, and I think I'm right in that. Just wanted to make sure that was correct.
Committee, you have anything to add?
I have one thing. Just one person's opinion here, because obviously Chairman and I have been dealing with this now for 3 years, including with Fountain. Sometimes things get too much press, and the Fountain's been one of them for whatever reason. Just my personal recommendation is, I have no problem with the peace pole whatsoever. I think it's a good idea. It's just one person's opinion. I'd keep it separate from the fountain. The fountain is just one of these things that, for whatever reason, is just getting more press than it should be getting. All we talked about a few weeks ago was there was a recommendation that, do we move it or keep it in the middle? We said, just keep it in the middle. That's all we said. And social media went nuts. So my personal recommendation is, I think a peace pole would be great. You got one down the airport, no controversy there. And I was joking with Carl Jacobs before the meeting started. You can put a peace pole out there at 2 in the morning tonight, And it would take 2 weeks for anybody to notice it was there. And like you said, probably the guy mowing the lawn would bump into it and said, when did that show up? But if it's attached to the fountain, it's just always gonna have controversy to it. For whatever reason, because this community has decided on a $17 million project, the fountain is the thing that people are gonna focus on right now. So just one person's opinion, and that's completely up to you. I would keep it separate from the fountain, because I can see down the road, it's just gonna be an issue. What design is it? Whose design is it? Who's paying for it? You know, what's the cost? Who decided this? You know, who in City Hall, who on the committee is friends with somebody on the committee that wants the Peace Bowl? How did this get done? Just my recommendation. Just keep it separate from the fountain, and in my opinion, it's gonna be a no-brainer, and it's gonna go through pretty friggin' quick. That's it for me.
Anyone else have anything to, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I would encourage the group to continue to have discussions with the city on coming to an agreement on a compromise to make sure that your wishes and intent are fulfilled, and you know, the city can help with the logistical planning piece of it. But I would encourage you guys to continue with the conversations.
Good. Former counselor?
Having gotten over my surprise, I am hearing still, you know, support for a peace monument, a peace pole on Central Square. So that fills my heart with joy. You know, there's a little bit of, and I think there's no doubt, I think we've said it every time we've met, that we started with the notion of a freestanding peace pole, and we'd be happy with that. I think the idea of the fountain really didn't come from us. It came from staff and counselors who wanted to address other issues about the fountain. I don't want to, you know, if that road still wants to be explored, I suppose we could, but there's no doubt in my mind that if the council is willing to accept a gift of a peace pole to be installed on Central Square, we're in a position to provide it. I think there needs to be a little bit, the final design probably needs to be agreed upon, and also the location, which are, you know, we can't just decide those things for ourselves probably, but we're pretty much along. We didn't want to get too deep into that until we knew whether we were, you know, we sort of got sidetracked into the fountain effort, and but I think we could come back to the other of that. But we need to know, I think, which fork in the road are we taking?
Gotcha. Anyone else? Yep.
I think there is a part of me, I just want to agree with you that was feeling a little confused, because I do remember you coming to us with the proposal of a poll. And I do remember that conversation, and it sounds like now at this point, you are still working with staff. That's my understanding.
Could be.
Just maybe there's some confusion about that, I think. But I do appreciate the clarity that the important part is or one of the important parts is the different languages. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anything? Anybody? What?
Ask for some clarification from the council. So we definitely, I envisioned, similar to Councilor Favelis, including language in the fountain design, however that fountain ends up looking, and it could be engraved, it could be bricks, it could be a variety of things. But I also appreciate Councilor Filio's point, how it has been an emotionally charged topic. So I would like to know, do you prefer us to continue to work on the fountain idea, or do you prefer that we work on the peace pole as a separate item? And if you do, is it Central Square and some additional direction? Because I'm afraid I will get back here and we'll still be confused.
Thank you. What? Yeah.
I'll start the conversation. I would be comfortable moving forward with the fountain, exploring the fountain idea with the group in the city. in Central Square. I have some concerns about the aesthetic of just a pole being in Central Square, I'll be honest. So I'm not as comfortable with the pole being on Central Square as much as the fountain idea. But I do like the idea of a peace pole, and I wouldn't vote against it if it came down to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree largely with Councilor Workman about the direction, about my concerns about the poll itself. I do think that I think depending on the design that comes back, if we go in the fountain direction, I don't know that I'm comfortable judging how the community will or won't react. There's a big difference between, adding something to the existing fountain versus redesigning the entire fountain. We've answered the question of moving or not moving the fountain, and so that piece is at least done. But it would be harder for me to support a standalone peace pole than it would be for me to support something that is tied in with the fountain, although I do appreciate the message. And I really do think this is a kind of unique opportunity for us to recognize all the different backgrounds that our community members bring. So really appreciate you coming to us. I'm leaning fountain.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I speak?
Behind you, Carl.
Oh.
I'm sitting here.
Oh,
Hi, Jennifer Sizo, 10 Fairfield Court in Keene. Just a member of the public here. And I think the idea of peace pole is great. I think as a pole right now, it's very recognizable across the world, whether it's tied to a fountain or not. So as a member of the public driving by, you see the pole in different languages. It's very recognizable. And I really support that idea. I'm not 100% opposed to the fountain, but that's going to be a while, and they've been working on it quite a while, or you all have. So I'm in support of having the pole. If they want the pole initially, right now, I'm in support of that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too did get some questions from the public about this, only because the unanswered questions, how is it going to fit? I think if we just had a rudimentary diagram of where it would go, how tall is it going to be, how much square footage is it going to take, how is it going to affect the Christmas tree, how is it going to affect the pumpkin festival, those are the kind of questions that people are asking. I think this really deserves a good looking over. I think, as John Lennon would say, we should give peace a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, therefore, this is unusual. The chair moves to put this matter on more time to allow, to come back at the next MSFI meeting, to allow the committee and staff to work on a combination fountain and peace pole concept. Anyone? We have a second. Yes, committee.
Fine, but I think that's one of the options. I think as the staff looks at it, all options should be explored. Because as I said, I'm fine with a peace pole no matter where it goes, in the fountain, out of the fountain. I think it's a great idea. I'm just saying, having been here for a long time, the peace pole by itself, you have one separate argument. If you combine the peace pole with a fountain, I'm just telling you, this is going to get dragged. So that's completely up to how they want to present it and how staff wants to work with it. But by combining it with the fountain, just based on all we went through, just saying we want to keep the fountain where it is, and it blew up on social media and on the radio and in the Sentinel for a month. And all we said was, just leave the fountain where it is. So that's just my opinion. I just think you're just going to run through a lot less hoops and a lot less social media issues and people dragging their feet. And then once you submit that you want it to be in the fountain, there's going to be 10 other people out there coming out here and saying they want their thing in the fountain. My personal recommendation is just keep it separate, but I'm just one out of 23,000 people in the city, and that's just my opinion.
Before I recognize you,
But I did,
and then I'll get back.
but that's fine.
The comments that I have heard is more about the funding of it. And with the city attorney's permission, may I be the first $100 contribution towards a self-funded peace fountain? Yes, Counselor? Let me know if that's a conflict.
Well, you barking up a tree on that one.
Yeah.
That dude.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, I mean, I can apply the logic both ways, right? I can say, okay, if we have a peace pole that goes up, everybody's going to want their pole or monument to go up. So I'm not sure that that is necessarily a consideration for me. I would be open to tweaking the language of this motion to be something, you know, directing city staff to just continue conversations if we don't want to, you know, pigeonhole it. But I'm not sure how much longer this can go tonight and be productive, so.
Thank you. Well put. Okay. Yes, Public Works Director.
I think Councilor Favelis addressed my question, but the way I heard the motion was specifically about options involving peace pole with a fountain. And I wasn't sure if that was the intent or if you want us to look at both options in the fountain or not in the fountain. I don't have a dog in this fight. I just want to make sure we're bringing you the right thing.
All options?
Sure, yeah. And who is the second?
Me. All options.
You good?
Yes,
Okay. Let it be so.
all options.
So clarified. Any more comments, public? Ready to vote? All in favor? Boom, 5. Thank you. Thank you. Look, give peace a chance. Okay. Wow, if we could solve anything. Okay, Counselor Jones. Request for city council communication to the state of New Hampshire regarding a potential roundabout at Route 9 and Wickham's Mill Road.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for having me. If I can take you back to the early 2000s, we had an issue on Route 9 and Washington Street. I don't know if you remember when they built a jug handle, the state built a jug handle out there.
Yep.
And the city was against it right from the very beginning. As soon as it was done, we said, no, that's dangerous. We had, at then, Michael Blastos was the mayor. We had a petition saying we want that changed because it was dangerous. I went out and got a personal petition for 200 people that signed. It went to, at that time, it went to, I think it was Governor Nichols. And our executive counselor then was Mr. Wheeler. Nothing was done about it until one day a woman got killed out there crossing over, trying to make that left turn, coming south on Route 9 and make the left turn onto Washington Street. She had to do that jug handle and then cross over the 2 lanes. At that time, Mayor Blastos said, told the governor and the executive counselor, do you want me to go public with these petitions, or are we going to do something about it? And it got done right away. And that's kind of the action we're looking for here today. We're not looking for something to go on the state 10-year plan or something like that. This is a whole different action, working on something that's going to make life safer. I am not a traffic expert. I don't know if roundabout is the answer, but I think if you ask for diamonds and hope for rhinestones, sometimes you get it. Well, you do. Just looking real quick at my letter, first of all, I asked the draft of a communication. By that, I'm giving you a choice of whether you want to do a letter or a resolution. I don't care. I just don't want it to be just an email, but sometimes you think a resolution is something of more importance. That's fine by me, but I'm also happy with a letter. Looking at the very last paragraph, who it goes to, I specifically picked out the DOT Commissioner, the Administrative Services Commissioner, the Public Works Director, and the Safety Commissioner. Those are the guys that get together all the time and look at what's going on with safety and traffic around the state. Those are the ones that should be addressed, as well as copying our current executives, counselor, and the governor, because we want them in tune with this. In my background, you see some bullets. I'm not going to read them all, but we already know it's a failed intersection. We all know that there's soon to be a 12-unit residential complex going in there, which is going to cause a lot more vehicle trips, hundreds more vehicle trips per day. The intersection is commonly used by employees, guests, visitors, and service vehicles going to Langdon Place. I'm sure Kat is very well aware of that. All delivery trucks, school buses, emergency vehicles servicing Whitcomb Mill Road must access via Route 9, as they are prohibited from coming from the Arch Street way because we have a limited weight bridge going over, is that called White Brook out there, I believe? Whatever it's called. That's what causes part of the issue out there. And we all know there's recently been a high number of tragic and fatal accidents along this stretch of Route 9 in both Chesterfield and Keene, and we're hoping the state can do something about that. There's a highly desirable need for improvements in this intersection. There's no turning lanes at that intersection. There's narrow shoulders, there's steep terrain, there's excessive curvature, and there's limited visibility. As we all know, a few years back, the state installed a roundabout a half-mile east of there on Route 9 and Base Hill Road, which was to the acclaim of the local residents and made life a lot safer. I use that intersection all the time, and it's certainly a lot safer. One thing I didn't notice, I didn't put into my bullets, and I think it's very important, and I have maps of that intersection here, and I have, does staff have the map?
I think we have it.
I know the council does. What I didn't mention in my bullet points is what's on the south side of Route 9, where Whitcomb's Mill Road crosses over. You see the red dot at the intersection. I took a ride up there, and you go along Whitcomb's Mill Road up there and Daniels Hill Road and Langley Road. There's got to be about 50 houses up there. I know there was a bad accident about a year ago where Daniels Hill Road comes out and meets Route 9 right about where the E is in Horatio Nature. You see that E is, see where that intersection is? I challenge anyone to go out that way into that neighborhood and try and make a left onto Route 9. If we had a roundabout at the intersection of Route 9 and Whitcomb's Mill Road, all those people can make their way to that one intersection, Whitcomb's Mill Road and Route 9, and safely get across to the other side or safely make that turn to go towards Chesterfield. I just think it's a lot easier. It's one of those situations where, as the Bowery boys would say, it couldn't hurt. I think it couldn't hurt to ask. I know it did come up a few years back when we approved that residential complex. It was a different mayor at the time. He said he was going to contact the state. I don't know what happened with that, if he made any progress. But all I'm asking is very simple communication to the state, either by letter or resolution, whichever the city council prefers to do, just asking for it and seeing what happens.
Thank you. To shorten the conversation, anyone have any objection to sending the communication? committee?
No, it's going to be.
Committee. Public? Public Works Director, you have a problem with sending the communication? I didn't think so. Whether it happens or not and does anything, good presentation.
That's all I'm asking, is to get it on record.
I get it.
Mr. Chair.
I get it. Okay, so,
It'd be up to you to decide if you want a letter or a resolution. That's,
I think a letter, city attorney, I think a letter is good. It'll shorten the process other than a resolution.
that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, if everyone's nodding their heads, Counselor Favolis?
Yeah, I have a quick question before I make the motion.
Sure.
Question for me?
It could be free. Is there a preference for who writes the letter? Like, do we want to specify the mayor?
Oh, it's the mayor.
I would assume the mayor.
Okay, I know we've had that question before with some of these. All right, then I would move to recommend that the Keene City Council.
You gotta go public first.
What?
You can't make a motion until you go out to the public.
What? I did. I asked. Public had nothing to say. Public Work Director nodded his head. It sounds good. Yes, correct? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair,
I'm trying to
do-
move the meeting along a
I
little.
get that, and I
from our
want
last
to get you out of here
conversation.
nice and early as well, but I do need to give you all of the information so you can make an informed decision.
Go right ahead.
So, Councilor Jones mentioned a couple of years ago when that residential development was approved, the mayor talked about going to the state. What came about as a result of that is we submitted what was called a request for roadway safety audit to the state through their normal process. So that was in 2023. In November of 2024, we were notified that we were selected to be audited for that intersection. That audit is scheduled to take place on August 4th, excuse me, not August, April 1st, sorry. So next week, DOT staff will be coming out here. Folks from Southwest New Hampshire, RPC, thank you, will be participating in that. They're going to do a site visit, do all of the on-site portion of that. What I handed out, or I asked the city attorney to hand out, is sort of the flow chart for that roadway safety audit. So the way this is going to work, we're going to do the audit next week. We'll get a draft report. The city will be given a copy of that draft report. We'll be welcomed and invited to weigh in on that draft report. Those draft comments get compiled by the state and into a final report. That final report goes to the Highway Safety Improvements Committee at DOT, and then they make recommendations about the implementation. Usually there's going to be some near-term, immediate implementation steps, things that they can do like restripe the roadway for turn lanes and that sort of thing, and then potentially longer-term implementation. And I know Councilor Jones doesn't want this to go into the 10-year plan, but those long-term solutions like multi-million-dollar roundabouts are almost certainly going to be part of the state 10-year plan. So my suggestion, my 2 cents, is to wait for the roadway safety audit to be completed. When we get the draft, then that would be an appropriate time for the city to weigh in with a recommendation that this intersection be improved with the roundabout, and that would be a long-term improvement.
Good.
So, okay.
Thank you. Anything further?
Yeah.
It's hopeless.
Jay Kahn, Mayor. So what I want to share is that this week, the Southwest Regional Planning Commission rendered their final decision on the TAC Committee, Transportation Advisory Committee. We had one project in there. It is the roundabout or some intersection improvements at Route 32 and 12. It was not recommended. I voted against the TAC Committee's recommendation. I was one of 14 votes. 2 projects were authorized, one in one in Marlboro and a second one. Anyway, that's irrelevant. not in Keene. My point in wanting to share that with you is that we would then have minimally, if the highway safety audit renders that this is another intersection that is worthy of improvements, and those improvements need to go into the 10-year plan, unlike what is desired, then we would have two competing projects. And I would just ask the committee that before I get into a position of writing somebody, that there's some consideration as to which project is of higher value and priority for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jones?
Thank you. Yeah, the Public Works Director and the mayor are exactly right, and that's why I was trying to avoid that process altogether, and make it sound more like an emergency process. Just writing to the letter to these department heads and trying to circumvent that process because it does cause the problems like the mayor did tell us.
So is there a problem with sending the letter, asking for consideration?
I don't see a problem with that. I think it's something good. If we're going through the process like the mayor talked about, it causes a conflict for him.
I think the state.
But if it's two different processes, then he no longer has that conflict.
Well, the state's going to make their own decision,
Yes, they are.
and the chances are it's going to be, don't hold your breath, right?
I'm trying to produce an emergency situation versus, oh, we need something on a 10-year plan.
Okay. So we're okay with the motion as, oh, yeah.
I'm curious what the turnaround time is for the report. Is it something that's going to take 3 months to get back if they're doing the safety audit, or is it going to be a week?
So by their process, we'll have a draft report in 2 to 3 months. The final process with going through the HISP committee and then the executive council and all of these different steps, it's probably closer to like 6 or more months before we get like their implementation plan finalized.
Thank you. Yep.
I guess that makes me more comfortable with a letter, sending it now.
Agreed.
That's
Good. Anyone else? Anything? And the motion as stated?
Move to recommend that the Keene City Council authorize the drafting of a letter to the state of New Hampshire proposing a roundabout be constructed at the intersection of Route 9 and Whitcomb's Mill Road.
Okay, and that's been
Second.
made and seconded. Anything further, committee or public? All in favor? That would be unanimous. Thank you.
Be right back.
Okay, and in the last discussion regarding the peace poll, I neglected to mention, and it should be included in the record, we have a communication from Cole Mills, who cannot be with us this evening, regarding opposition to the installation of a peace pole on Central Square. But we have this communication in hand. Okay, next up, continued discussion. Proposal to add the necessary infrastructure to accommodate a banner across Main Street. And this is a discussion brought about by Tim Pipp and Ted McGreer. So gentlemen, if you want to come forth, please. With comments from Public Works Director. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hey, Tim.
Tim Pipp. I own B's Tees on Main Street. So we came a couple months ago to talk about a pole infrastructure for a banner over Main Street. Ideally, what we're looking to do is just promote events, promote that we're open. It's green now. Looking to promote events and promote things happening downtown. A lot of cities in New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts have these banners over their main streets or main streets. But what a banner would do is drive foot traffic to events. So, you leave it up for 2 weeks before the event and people know about it. Support local economy. Again, more people downtown recognizing what's going on. It strengthens our community identity so we can have a welcome message, welcome to Keene, happy holidays kind of thing. It's a flexible communication tool, again, for different events or holidays or things going on downtown. It could promote tourism, increase visibility for underserved organizations. So there's an opportunity for them to, the Keene Lions Club presents or something like that. There'd be a minimal ongoing cost. The only real cost is hanging up banners, which could be taken over by an organization, or I'm not really sure how that'll all work yet. We talked about it with the city, so I think we're trying to figure out that. It shows that the city is business friendly. So by promoting these events, we're welcoming people into our city. I don't know how many of you not you in particular, but I've heard a lot of people come in my store and throughout town saying, I didn't know there was an event today. That's probably the biggest thing we hear when there's a big event. Wizarding Week, Pumpkin Festival, we often get people coming into our store saying, didn't know there was an event today. And my response is always, are you from around here, and do you ever drive downtown? Even if they drive downtown, sometimes there's no way to figure that out. So it would add on for that. Again, a lot of other cities and towns around New England have these, and they're really, beneficial. We've worked with the city of Manchester quite often to, do their banners, and, it's a pretty easy process. We have I know the city has all of the requirements and stuff for that, but, so that's really it.
Thank you. Committee questions for Jim? There will be more later.
Yep.
Don't go. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Ted McGreer, 115 Main Street. So I would echo what Tim said. I would also say that, Keene used to have one of these, and it's got a little level of nostalgia to it, right? I mean, you come into town, especially with what we're looking at over the next 3 years. I happened to be across town the other day, Tuesday, at Market Basket, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you couldn't get a parking place. That side of town was packed. I came back over to Main Street, and it was a ghost town. I don't want to see this ghost town feel continue. Concord's got one, Manchester's got one. I know that the 2 poles that are designed to support this banner and the wind and the loads on it are substantial. And there might be some discussion about viewing or having issues with changing the way that the town looks and losing the sight of the church because we got a banner across Main Street. But I really endorse it. I hope you guys will. And I guess I would end with those 2 poles that support that banner could be beautiful peace poles. Just saying. So.
Thank you, Ted.
Well played, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucia, Public Works Director. The city manager has kind of directed staff to look at this issue from a number of different perspectives. And we did meet with Mr. McGreer and Mr. Pip to discuss it a couple weeks ago. To be quite honest, the engineering that Ted mentioned is kind of the easy part. The poles that would be necessary, pretty large. They're 18 to 24 inch diameter steel poles. They're good sized posts that you would see, downtown. They're not like street light poles. These are pretty substantial. And they're supported underground by like 42-inch diameter concrete bases. So they're pretty large, and it is because of the wind forces that this banner would be. Basically, it's a giant kite, right? But in a lot of ways, that's the easy part of this question. The more interesting and complicated questions are related to legal issues, freedom of speech, who gets to use it, who gets to decide who uses it and who doesn't, what kind of messaging is allowed, how much of that messaging is commercial in nature. all of those sorts of things get awfully hairy awfully quickly. So, for those reasons, staff has some pretty significant reservations around those issues, and also around the issue of aesthetics, like Ted mentioned. It definitely would change the perception and the look of the downtown as you approach Main Street from the south. Most likely what we'd be looking at is like a 35-foot wide banner. And we looked at different options, like it could be centered over the roadway, sort of over the median, or it could just be centered over the northbound lane, for example, so it would be in one direction only. But either way, it is going to change the way, you can perceive the downtown and the church and the tree canopy and everything else as you approach downtown. So those aesthetics are a real concern. Our recommendation, if the city, my recommendation, I guess I won't speak for all of the staff, if the council wants to move forward with this, definitely recommend that it be used only for city-sanctioned events, either city-sponsored events, meaning like official community events that receive funding from the city, or events that receive a license from the city council. And in that way, we can have a little control over what the messaging is and the content of that is. Or official communications, basically banners put up by the city itself. I would imagine when it's not in use for a community event, it could be welcome to Keene, and there may be some seasonal different messages for that from the city. The other recommendation is if this moves forward, either through an ordinance or through just directives from the city manager's office, we develop a pretty clear set of guidelines over how this is going to actually be implemented in terms of things like the management. How long before your event are you allowed to put it up? How long is it allowed to stay up? Who is eligible and qualified to put this banner up? That installing the banner isn't just a matter of a volunteer with a stepladder. This is going to be like a bucket truck parked in traffic with traffic controls, just to protect the work area, and all in the name of avoiding liability for somebody getting hurt. So we really would need to develop those controls out in the form of an administrative directive or city ordinance. So those are my 2 cents. I don't know if I missed anything. I'll let the city attorney weigh in.
Complete, but you did touch on kind of scratched a question that came in my mind. So the Rotary Club puts up banners on the light poles.
Right.
How do we differentiate the ability to put up a banner on the light pole from a banner across the road?
So the banner on the light pole is a volunteer on a stepladder. They're not working in traffic. They're not hanging.
I'm talking about the content.
Oh, the content. The content I'd have to defer to. I think the Rotary controls that, right?
Yeah. But how do we say, no, you cannot put up that it's, some event at the Colonial or whatever else is on the light poles? Maybe you have that.
So it was before my arrival, but it's my understanding that we created an agreement with the Rotary that basically gave them control of those light poles and those banners. So therefore, we were not monitoring or controlling the content. I don't know what the parameters were in regards to the agreement between the city and the Rotary, but that's why we're not involved in the content. This is a very large banner. I do not recommend that. I think that you will want to have some control, and you will want to have it in a way that doesn't get us into trouble or predicaments when people are competing for time to use those banners. And so that's why when we were having the conversation with Tim and Ted, we were talking about the potential of, if this were to move forward, starting with government speech. So things that are city-sanctioned events, things that the city are, they come through the community event process, or something that the city is putting out there ourselves. even just doing that, you've got a banner just about every month, if not multiple banners in a month. And then there's the process of figuring out who puts it up. I don't recommend we use city staff and a bucket truck. We have lots of other competing needs for those staff members and the fire department in particular. And so would need to be an understanding of then who's doing it and who's paying for that. So there are lots of things we looked at. I will say Terry Hood in the clerk's office did a great job looking at Manchester and Concord and other cities that do it and looked at their programs and what they have in place. And I think they, also limit it to some degree. And they do it different depending upon, some of them require them to hire, and they have a list of people they can hire to put the banners up. And then some are a little bit more lenient, and they do it themselves at the city. So I think there are options, but the two things that we wanted to most emphasize with you is the look of these poles, the size of these poles, and the infrastructure that will be up all year long, even when a banner is not in place, and to be sure that you realize that when you make the decision. And then also, if you do it, to have a good program in place that doesn't get us in predicaments where we have people competing for time on the banner system.
Thank you. You touched on a lot of issues.
Okay.
My one that just to repeat it, how could it be on a light pole and then denied on the big banner? I think that becomes a real problematic speech issue.
I'll just jump in a little bit, because I could talk about First Amendment stuff all day. It's like my favorite area, so if I nerd out, I'm sorry. For the light poles, also before my time, my understanding is, like the city manager had said, we, the city, gave the Rotary Club, I believe, the permission to basically just do that whole thing themselves. What they put up there, we don't see, we don't look at it, nothing like that. The banner, being much larger infrastructure, obviously we'd be much more involved in. And there's a lot of safety concerns and rights of way and things like that. So that's taking it as a different direction in that way. And as far as the speech goes, government speech, fun to talk about, very cool. The government cannot be regulating speech when it's somebody who's, from the public and saying this speech is acceptable, but not this type, right? That's where we get in trouble. So the alternative for that, which is the government speech doctrine, is that we're basically controlling all of the speech. Therefore, we're not picking and choosing. It's all just coming from us. And so that's why it would make the most sense if it's going to be government speech, we're just putting stuff out there that we're already involved in, the community events or something like that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Counselor.
Thank you. I have a question that I haven't heard addressed, which is the installation cost of this. That was a question that I think was on the committee's mind the last time around. Do we know what the upfront installation cost
Yes,
here might be?
the system themselves, just the material cost is about on the order of 25,000. With installation, I would probably double that, about 50,000 for the system, the poles and the wires and everything else. The banners, I've heard quotes between 1,500 and 2,500 for each banner.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Counselor.
Okay, well, as someone who's lived in this city my entire life and been on this council for quite a many years, we're still known as the city that says no. We find a reason to say no. And I think we need more of an attitude of find a reason to say yes. We can always find millions of reasons to say no for things. That's easy. But how do we find more ways to say yes? What can we do? What can we overcome here? We're not creating a new mousetrap here. I was in Concord a couple weeks ago, and South Main Street and North Main Street in Concord have the banners, and they're wide. They go all the way across, and they're promoting their activities in Concord. And I wouldn't have known what was going on. My wife looked up at it and said, let's come back up next weekend for that, just because of the banner. An example in Keene is, some of you know I work part-time at the Colonial Theater to keep me out of trouble. And, 700 to 900 people a night come into the shows. And I engage with all of them. Where are you from? If you've been to Keene before? They said, no, this is wonderful. What else is going on? And then I try to go through what I know is going on. And just a simple banner for those 900 people that are popping into Keene. And when the Colonial Theater does 700 to 900 people, a few hundred are from Keene, 500 or 600 aren't. They come into Keene, they see that, and now, maybe they see that banner and maybe it draws another 100 or 200 to Keene. you look at the revenue, which is hard to pinpoint how much they spend, but it's a lot. The Colonial Theater fills up, the restaurants and retailers are full. I know when the Colonial sells out, the hotels downtown are completely full. So when you talk about just how much is this pole gonna cost, how much is the banner gonna cost, what is the return on investment? Now, I sat on the committee 30 years ago when we brought Jumanji into Keene. And I can't tell you how many negative naysayers we had that it's not gonna work, it's gonna cost us a fortune, the businesses downtown are gonna shut down, you're all crazy. And now we have a major event coming up in a couple of months for the 30th anniversary because it went so well. So my whole opinion of this is, let's change the mindset about why should this not happen to why can't we make this happen? Like I said, we're not creating a new mousetrap here. Concord does them, Manchester does them, Nashville has them. Okay? We're not the first. We're not creating something new here. Let's see what we can do to get it done. If it comes to be cost prohibitive, then we talk about that down the road. But let's go with the mindset that we can do this until we find a reason we can't do this.
Manager. Yep.
Well, Counselor, since you were looking at me during that conversation, I think I should respond because I agree with you that we try to find ways to do things, and we try to be creative. But it's also our job to make sure you're thinking about all sides of an issue. And the way that this was presented tonight was, here's the size of the pole, here's how much we would need to have in terms of put it in place, and here's the program you'd need to think about. There was never once someone saying, you shouldn't do this. We weren't advocating for it, or we weren't advocating against it. And so I think that's our job to make sure you understand that. The poles, the infrastructure that you need in place is much larger than Concord or some of these other places because of the width of our Main Street. And I agree that those banners are very visible, and when you go downtown and you may not know an event is happening, I think that they can be very effective. And I also agree that having people come downtown and support our local businesses is very important. So we're not saying you shouldn't do it. We're just saying think about these things when you make your decision.
Just to follow up, we're agreeing. It's like a love fest. Yeah, I agree with everything you say. It could be cost prohibitive, but until it's shown that it's cost prohibitive, let's move forward and move in a positive direction. If something comes up, like other things, they hit the council and it goes, we can't do this because of this, then so be it. We look at an alternative route. But until we reach that point, let's move forward in a positive direction and not more what I kind of see why we can't do something. So we're in agreement of virtually everything you just said. But until somebody says we can't do this, I want to move forward.
Yep, Counselor.
Thank you. I think for me, in order to feel comfortable saying yes, I would need to see what the program is, how the payment would work in terms of, and if this were going to be, say, specifically for festivals, my assumption would be that the person or that the organization hosting the festivals would be paying. And so I would want to definitely see a lot of support from organizations that are hosting festivals saying that they're willing to pay the $1,500 per banner or whatever it costs, and that this would be really helpful. And that would be, I wouldn't really, I would have trouble considering it until I knew those things.
Thank you. Don, was it considered to have a pole in the middle? So it's not a full span, but a half span?
It was. So if we were to do just the northern half of the roadway, in other words, or the northbound half of the roadway, and just have it over the 2 lanes heading north, for example, we could put a pole in the median and one on the outside. And that lessens the span. It's still a 35-foot wide banner, and that banner is catching the wind. So it makes it the forces a little bit easier, but it's still pretty substantial piece of infrastructure. I don't know if we'd be able to do, I guess we could. We could potentially do like 2 banners, one on one side, one on the other. It would complicate the installation because you'd have to install them from each side. So you'd be basically installing 2 separate banners. But theoretically, that'd be possible.
That was my thought. You could have 2 different events or just the banner split in half, but to try to cut down the span. My concern also, there will be a cable there all year,
Yes.
whether there's a banner or not.
Yeah,
So-
correct. The way these systems work is that the guy wires are continuously in place. The banners themselves hook onto them top and bottom, and there's like a pulley system that deploys the banner out across the street,
Yeah.
and then you retract it with the pulley.
Okay, committee, just to remember that.
That's fine.
Okay. Anything further? Yes, sir. Tim?
I just want to clear something up. The banners are no more than $1,250. Just to say that. The way I saw this was an organization would take over this like the Lions Club does, and then would report to the city, and the city would use the permitting for events for this. So you would directly correlate, if you have a permit to do an event in the city, you'd be allowed to hang a banner, otherwise, no go. I think that's fair. The other thing is, there's another option, which we discussed before, is putting it from building to building, which would make it private now. That was originally my idea, but I was told that the city should take care of it, so put poles up. But if you were to go building to building and tie it in on the buildings rather than on poles, you'd have less of a distraction, and so that's what I think. I don't really love the whole 3-pole down Main Street idea, but other than that, I think there's other options than just a big pole. So.
What do you think about the building to building?
So it potentially eliminates the issue with the poles, being visible. It doesn't really eliminate the government speech concerns, because that messaging is still over the public way. And if there's no control over that, then, we have to worry about distracted messaging that is going to create traffic problems. Is it, something that is appropriate for the public way, that sort of thing. So theoretically, I think that could be through like an air rights license, but there would still have to be some sort of restrictions on what was the content.
Do the buildings line up appropriately?
The height, I'm not sure about. In terms of horizontal alignment, I think it would work.
The north-south?
Yeah, the north-south, I think it works out okay using the Ted Shoes building as one side. The only thing I can't visualize right now is if the building across the street is high enough to meet what we would need. The bottom of these banners would be about 17 feet off of the ground. The tops would be, between 20 and 22 feet off of the ground. So I'm not sure that the building on the east side, that's the works. I don't know if it's that tall.
Sounds like a lot of questions. Yeah.
Not to drag out the conversation even further, but I do have a question. We talked about the advertising above the light post being controlled by or overseen by the Rotary. I haven't heard about the message boards that are put up usually by the post office, maybe up here by Central Square. I know we've used those quite a bit for promotions of events. Can you just provide a little back history and story on same thing? How does one go about getting their event advertised there?
So my understanding is that is managed by the clerk's office. And again, that I believe is just city licensed events that goes up on there.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
Is that not correct? Yeah.
There's an application, excuse me, Mr. Chair. There's an application, any organization can utilize that. There's I think a $15 fee to post your banner for 10 days, I believe it is, or 2 weeks, somewhere in that time frame.
So the city has no control over that aspect of it?
Other than that we license it.
Okay.
And just to clarify, I
Yep.
think the clerk's office does review it ahead of time. I don't know exactly what that review is. They're aware of what's there.
It's sounding like there's a bunch of options that need to be explored. The building to building, the building heights, and I could answer that. 2 poles, 3 poles. I guess I'll ask city manager or attorney, just straight more time or what? Yeah,
I'm good with that, yeah.
you good? Committee? General public, anything to say, or Public Works Director? No? Okay, go ahead. More time.
Move to recommend that this item be placed on more time.
To come
Second.
back- To come back at the next meeting. Anything further, committee? All in favor? Thank you. It's great to see you guys. We'll be back again next month. Maybe the month after, too. Moving at the speed of government. And while you're taking your seat,
Yes.
just to ventilate something, at our last council meeting, there was discussion about trying to speed meetings along and, limit conversation and
no worries, yeah.
whatnot. That's why maybe I'm a little more, yep, okay, ready to vote? Okay, yes.
Ready to
Oh,
go?
Hi, yeah, we're ready to vote.
Ready to vote. I haven't even
What do
proposed
you want
anything
to
yet.
talk about?
That's fantastic. Kara
Okay, this is
Fisk.
regarding the Monadnock View Cemetery, Section B, new cremation lots. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kara Fisk, Hennessy, Director of Parks and Recreation. I am here tonight to request that MSFI recommend City Council approval of additional cremation lots in Section B of Monadnock View Cemetery. We are very quickly running out of space at Monadnock View Cemetery, and we are in the process of accepting and reviewing proposals for cemetery expansion on a larger scale. In the meantime, we are worried that we may run out of cremation spaces specifically. Currently, we have 13 cremation lots available, and we have 56 full-body burial lots available. So we went to the trustees in November of 2024, requesting that we were able to add some lots to the existing mapping at Monadnock View Cemetery in 3 different sections. Section B is the first section that we would like to utilize, and I do have a copy of a map here. I was informed by the clerk's office that it did not make the packet, so I'm more than willing to share these. Thank you.
The former cemetery director. And my comments were not aimed at you. I just want to.
And what you'll see in the map of these 27 additional lots in Section B is that they will not interfere with anybody else's resting place. They are currently located within an area of vegetation so that everybody will have access to the new spaces. I'm here because of Section 22-61 of the City Code, and in order for us to develop and use lots, and before we are able to open them for sale, we need to have it platted and recorded in the city clerk's office upon city council approval. So I'm here to ask that MSFI request city council approval for the addition of these lots.
Thank you. I was about to say almost the same thing. Committee? Good. Public? Yep.
Sorry, where is Section B?
So if you're going into the Monadnock View Cemetery, you're going to travel up one of the roadways, and Section B is in the center of the Monadnock View Cemetery.
You all right?
What is the vegetation that's there now?
It's shrubbery.
Okay.
Anyone else, comments, thoughts, or whatnot? Laura, motion?
My motion.
Oh, it's your motion?
Yeah, so,
Go ahead.
okay. Being that business seems to be good for cemeteries, I will move to recommend the city council approve additional cremation lots in Section B of the Monadnock View Cemetery.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded by, who got the second? Council Tobin. Anything further, public? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on more, you're doing a verbal update
Yes.
regarding the former Findings Property Keene Skate Park project. This is something that I've been asked quite a bit, and I bet Council Filio's been asked, and all of us, what's going on out there?
Absolutely true. So what you'll see from the deputy city manager in the map that
Council
he,
Haas, too.
that he has handed out to you is a conceptual rendering of what is going into the findings property space. Right now, we do have the survey and wetlands delineation and sidewalk design in progress by Meridian, and we will have these plans ready for construction at the end of April. You'll see the sidewalk that goes along connecting Water Street to the parking area at Russell Park. Bays & Brothers is going to be coming back to the site around mid-April. They're the ones that did the demolition of the findings property itself. They'll be coming back around mid-April to cap and abandon the water, sewer, and gas utilities and loam and seed the site to complete that part of the project. We are also going to be putting a skate park permanent fence out to bid to make sure that we can get rid of the temporary fence that's there now. And we will have a bocce ball court that will be likely installed in May. We know that the lights, posts, and bases will be delivered for installation around the third week of April. What you'll also see in this findings property are the green circles, which is where we anticipate being able to plant trees. And again, this is a conceptual idea at this point. We really do want to preserve this space as green space, and we want to increase the number of trees that are available in this park. I would like for it to be known that these trees will not be all the same species. And I think that it's very important that we have a diversified area of forest, and that they will not all be planted at the same time, so that it will be an eventual planting of different species of trees in this space.
I was under the impression that this property is a floodway, and that's why buildings cannot be built there. Is that any reality to that?
Yeah, so the floodway is actually essentially you follow the the demarcation of the walking path. So the skate park was located just outside of that, and so you see the wetland that's earmarked up above, so that's part of the property, and then the floodway kind of goes pretty close up to the sidewalk.
Because among the questions I've been asked, why don't we rebuild the building and let's get an industry out there? And the answer is, it's a floodway.
Correct. And now,
That's more than a flood zone.
you've accepted LWCF funds, so this will be green space for perpetuity.
Okay. Yep.
Hey, thank you. I just have a quick comment, and I know that oftentimes the Parks and Rec director is also at the East Keene neighborhood meetings where this comes up frequently, but I really like this. I think this is really consistent with what the folks in this neighborhood have asked for in that space. It's always, I say this every time, but it's always really nice to see investment and development of all sorts of different projects, industry, green space, and otherwise in East Keene. I also will offer that I don't think this is a terrible place for a peace pole, if that's the ultimate design direction that we go.
Thank you.
And among the other comments that I've heard, and I'm sure Councilor Haas can speak to this, questions regarding community garden, questions regarding pickleball court. I think just the green space is a good idea too, but these are things that the public are asking while we're talking tonight. Yep.
I met the young lady who was testing for wetlands, and that was a fascinating process to hear about that, how they do that. One question I did have is, I noticed, so walking over there, there are still, I think, some invasive vines in the ground in that area near the skate park, and around that, what it says the existing tree is. And I'm curious if there are plans to remove those, or is that part of a plan?
I am not sure of the answer on that, so I think that it would warrant further exploration
Okay,
as Bays & Brothers comes back to loam and seed the area.
okay.
Any other questions? This is really an informative session. I didn't really hear much on the community garden question, but, yeah.
If I may relate it to the pickleball question.
Yeah.
So, right on the other side of the map, on the left edge, you see the property from Whitney Brothers, and there's the basketball courts. The basketball courts have 4 pickleball courts lined on that space. There's really no need to put a whole new set of pickleball courts
I'm
on
not
the
an
other side of the
advocate
park.
for-
So I'm just relaying, informing the public that in that location, you do need to bring your own nets. They are lit from the lights at the basketball courts. So there is quite a few groups that use those because they're kind of quiet and unknown, and we just kind of announced they're a little bit more, so maybe a little bit more competitive for the space. But what I have seen is the basketball and pickleball community have worked out jointly a cohesion, so it's working out well.
Without a peace poll.
Without a peace.
Okay. Other questions regarding that area? Again, this is informational for the public as well as us. Okay, seeing none, Council Tobin.
Move to recommend the update on the former Findings property and the skate park project be accepted as informational.
Second.
Seconded by Council Filio. Anything further, public? Committee, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, the verbal update regarding the downtown infrastructure project. Our Public Works Director, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucia, Public Works Director, but I will be very, very quick. So not much, nothing too heavy to talk about with the downtown project this month, but just some brief updates. On the project ombudsman position that we've talked about, that position has been advertised to date. We've gotten 7 applicants for that position. I will be sending out the resumes to the selection team here probably this week, and hopefully schedule interviews with the ones that they're interested in meeting in the next couple of weeks. So I think, by next month, this time, we'll be able to give you a little more insight on the selection process. I'm sure you either heard or saw downtown this week the drill rig with the mast up in the air and making a mess of the downtown. So what's being done is what we call geotechnical exploration or subsurface investigations. Basically, they're collecting data on the soil conditions below ground. And there was some confusion, I know, about what the purpose of all that was. It has nothing to do with investigating the condition of utilities or determining what the scope of the utility work is. It's really providing the design parameters that we need for things like how to hold up the foundation for a traffic signal pole, or making sure that the gravel under the new roadway is of sufficient quality and quantity that it's going to hold up over time, more than it is about what the actual utilities are. But that's the information that they're collecting this week. My understanding is that work is on schedule this week, and it's expected to be wrapped up this week. So by the end of the week, that should be wrapped up, and they'll be on their way. Also, City Clerk's Office has scheduled a meeting with the license holders. You may recall there was some questions about how we were going to manage like sidewalk cafe licenses and whatnot during construction. There was a draft ordinance put into the council process that would have basically said the Public Works Director can say no licenses for you, when the roadway is under construction. That didn't go over as well as we'd hoped, to say the least. So based on that feedback, we are going to be meeting with the folks that currently hold sidewalk cafe licenses. And the idea of that meeting is to give them realistic expectations about what it's going to be like to try to have a sidewalk dining experience during construction, right? And make sure they understand You know, your tables are gonna be sitting on gravel, it's gonna be dusty and all the rest. And then also kind of figure out what we can live with in terms of, notification when they need to move their tables out of the way, and how long of a period of time that a site is going to be inactive that we're going to allow them to move back in and then have to move back out. Those sorts of things, just so we can kind of set some parameters around how we're going to manage it during construction. That meeting is scheduled to take place on the 7th of April. The draft ordinance that was put on more time and is kind of languishing, I think it's with PLD, that draft ordinance is going to be withdrawn. Instead of having an ordinance that says the Public Works Director can direct the city clerk to not issue licenses, basically we're going to manage it through conditions of approval that are going to be written into their annual license for the year that site is under construction. So that'll be how that works. Then finally, I just wanted to mention the Northern Borders Regional Commission. You heard we got a grant for the solar pavilion on Gilboa Ave. I got notice on Monday that grant had moved its way through their process. So now they're waiting for some paperwork from the city to document a few things. Hopefully, within the next month, we will get notice to proceed on the work that's covered by that grant. When that happens, a couple of things. We're going to be coming to the City Council for authorization to execute an agreement with the Southwest Regional Planning Commission. We're required to use the services of a local development district to help us administer the grant. Basically, we pay them, I believe it's 2% of the grant award, and in exchange for that, they make sure that we're following all of the federal regulations. They keep us all out of jail. So that's going to be, our LDD, Local Development District, is Southwest Regional Planning Commission. So they've agreed to do that work, and we'll be signing an agreement with them to do that. The other thing that you'll be seeing here, hopefully in the next month, will be a solicitation for a consulting team to design that structure. The design of that structure was not included in Stantec's work because we weren't sure if we were going to be moving forward with it at the time we issued them the contract for the final design. So we'll be doing a separate solicitation to select an engineer to design that structure specifically. Of course, it's going to have to be integrated with the downtown plans, but it'll be done by potentially a separate contractor. Okay.
Good. Question? Yeah.
Now, just a comment, when you get that check, cash it quick.
Yes, Laura.
Are there plans to communicate with the farmers market? And how does that?
Yeah, absolutely. That'll basically be managed the same way that we're managing events during the process. What we've committed to is all of the community events, and Farmers Market is really no different, even though it's a weekly event. All of the events that are happening downtown will be accommodated during construction. It may be in a different footprint. So, the second year of construction, when we're working on Gilboa Ave, which right now would be 2027, the Farmers Market is not going to be located on Gilboa Ave. We're going to have to find a different location for that to occur. But that's the intention.
Yeah.
One consideration I just want to keep in mind is that whereas say a festival, they may require 2 weeks' notice. A farmer's market may require more notice to notify the people who would be coming to the farmer's market. So I just want to make sure that we're giving them plenty of notice
Yeah,
so that they can notify their customers.
And I think this is going to be worked out, months in advance, and it's going to be the same location for the duration of that season. It could be in one of the parking lots. So, the commercial street lot is half of the farmer's market today. We may decide that all of the farmer's market is going to be within the commercial street lot, use both sides of the lot or something like that. Or it could be in a different part of the downtown. That hasn't been decided. But once it's decided, I think my preference would be that that's where it's going to be that season.
Good. Yeah, Jacob.
Thank you. I don't remember the details of this conversation. This was maybe even 2 meetings ago of this committee. I had asked a question about, have we been doing enough to kind of compile resources and work with places like the Hannah Grimes Center to help businesses manage through this? And there was a specific event that I think you had said that staff were going to be at.
Correct.
And how did that go?
Yeah, so the Hannah Grimes Center hosted I forget what it was called, but basically an events planners coordination meeting. That was done, I want to say, back in December. Don't quote me on it. I think was that?
End of January.
End of January? Seems like a million years ago to me, but whatever. We did attend that, and basically the message we gave them is exactly what I just said. We showed them some conceptual plans of how alternative arrangements could be arranged. Basically, the highway superintendent and the staff from PD sat down and they said, okay, when Central Square is under construction and all of Fitz is torn up, how are we going to manage events? And they said, well, we could use this space, this space, this space. And what they found is that by using a combination of other spaces, they could accommodate the footprint of any event that we're currently holding. So like I said, it might not be in the same location, but we can provide as much or more room for every event that we're currently holding. One of the challenges is going to be with parking, because part of the space that we're counting on to accommodate those events is the Gilboa Ave parking lots. So that'll be a challenge that we still need to figure out some details on. But each event we're going to work, just like we do now, each event we work with to figure out the footprint that they need and how we can accommodate that safely with event security and all of the other considerations. So that'll be the same. We're still going to have to work event by event to figure out exactly what their footprint is, but we can provide them enough room to do everything that they're doing today.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else, committee, public? Jacob? Oh, you? Hi, Ed. Counselor?
Thank you, Chair. A question for city staff, no doubt. The ombudsman position is deemed a part-time position, I believe?
That's correct.
And is there a start date anticipated for an ombudsman?
So the expected start date was going to be, early spring as part of the construction ramp up. Now that the project has been delayed a year, what we would like to do is select the employee, find the right person, have them officially become, part-time employees, but their work scope is going to be fairly limited through the summer and early fall, and it'll start ramping up later in the fall as we go into bidding the project. We get bids with the contractor. We start meeting with the contractor to coordinate schedules and whatnot. Their schedule would ramp up accordingly.
All right, thank you. I just want to mention what came up in our Ward 2 listening session was to understand the traffic flows around construction during construction, not only just during the events, but there'll be a lot of diversion of traffic into the neighborhoods during construction. So that'd be good for the ombudsman to take on and plan ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? Now.
Move to recommend that the verbal update on the downtown project be accepted as informational.
Second.
And that motion was made by Counsel Favelis, seconded by Counsel Workman. Anything further, committee, public? All in favor? We are unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
This is regarding the Route 9 restriping project. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Brian Ruoff, City Engineer. As the council may or may not recall, last fall we discussed this intersection. The Public Works Engineering Division, in conjunction with DOT, came up with a solution to restripe this intersection. We had it planned. To execute that plan, I think the day before or 2 days before Thanksgiving, and we got snow. So that killed our plans for getting it in before the end of the year. We've since communicated with DOT because the whole reason the city was taking this on and taking on the expense of this work is because they were no longer able to do that striping that late in the season. They had closed down their operations for the year. They have since confirmed that as a start of this season that they'll schedule and coordinate with us to do this striping work. We anticipate it will be done between the next 4 to 6 weeks, and it will be at no cost to the city. So we don't have an exact date yet. We're waiting on warmer temperatures. We need essentially for this volume of traffic, location 50 degrees and rising for line striping to hold up in this location, and that's essentially the plan right now. DOT will perform this work in-house and will be at no cost to the city, different from the original plan.
Great. And again, repeating the no cost to the city, the original plan, there was going to be a cost to the city.
That's
And the other great news, there's been no accidents over the course of the winter, so
very, very glad about that, yes.
let's get it striped quick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Questions, committee, public? Yeah, Laura?
I noticed you put the compass on here, so I just wanted to say thank you for the directionally challenged.
Sure, of course.
Okay. Anything further, committee, public? And a motion?
I move to
Counsel.
recommend the verbal update on Route 9 restriping project be accepted as informational.
Second.
And seconded by Council Filio. Anything further, committee or public? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Next one is proposal to install a stop sign on Wilbur Street at Water Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Brian Ruff, City Engineer. This is going to sound very similar to a lot of other recent requests for stop signs. Essentially, this came in through See-Click Fix. This is an area that we've been talking about a lot recently for safety concerns. Someone brought up the concern that on Wilbur Street at Water Street, there's limited sight distance looking left for westbound traffic on Water Street, and recommended that we look at installing a stop sign on Wilbur Street. You'll see in your packet, there's an overhead view of the location and a picture of what the line of sight is there. As you see, because of the horizontal geometry of the curve, there is less than adequate sight distance to see a car coming on Water Street, and because of that, in light of that, we are recommending that the committee recommend that the city manager be directed to draft an ordinance to add a stop sign at this location.
Thank you. Questions, committee? Public? Pretty simple.
Yep. We recommend the city manager be directed to draft an ordinance to add a stop sign on Wilbur Street at its intersection with Water Street.
Second.
And the second is by Council Tobin. Yeah, okay, anything further, committee or council?
Just one other quick thing to add on this, and I apologize because the flow was so good there. But in conjunction with this, we've noticed a couple of locations in the city code where stop signs are listed that are no longer at those locations in the city code, and yield signs are listed where that's no longer the configuration. Traffic lights are listed where we've changed to roundabouts. Some of these date back 20 years of roadway improvements and changes. We did an audit of the entire city code for all traffic enforcement signals, and we've submitted to City Council 4 ordinances to update all those discrepancies between the code and what is actually installed within the city, and confirmed what's appropriate as well. So it's an updated version that has us within the current confines of the city infrastructure.
Great, see you in April.
Yeah.
Okay, anything further on the Wilbur Street stop sign? All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you for all coming. We are more or less adjourned, and this is all following the new directive of moving it along.